What's up, party people? This is Survivor Teek, and this is part two of week four's analysis for the Contenders. And we finally get a little bit from Blue, but let's just have a moment of silence for my number two pick, JD. I was blindsided a little bit. I thought JD was going to go further. We got a ton of content from JD. We got a good narrative about how he wanted to follow the footsteps of his other Survivor players. He was always a little bit weird, and he was bullied as a kid. We got a lot of this from the first episode when he was on the summit to understand JD's situation. But Survivors really helped him fit in. And every episode, we kind of saw him survive by the skin of his teeth. Despite making poor strategic decisions, I thought we would get a narrative where there'd be a bit of an upturn, and perhaps with a final kind of demise in the final two, or if not, maybe we see him do what his previous Survivor predecessors couldn't do and make it to the end. But we had this really interesting confessional from JD this episode where he essentially said, I'm either gonna, be the player that changes Survivor, be the real game changer, or I'm gonna go into history book as one of the dummies. JD, you're in the history books as one of the dummies. He gave away his advantage for the second time. He himself said that Shan's a really good player. She's really sneaky. He knows what she could do. Yet he decided to trust her in this Final Four situation to such extent to give away your advantage. I think in modern Survivor, this might have been one of the worst moves ever made. Look in the history of the game, what JD did. And so I think that was why we got the arc from JD. I think JD is just such a big, powerful personality. I think that's why we ended up moving him up so far in the rankings. But with JD gone, the field's really opened up, I think. And yeah, we'll see how the actual flow goes. And so we'll start right back at the top. The number one contender. Other people online are starting to fall for her as well a little bit, but I still have Tiffany as number one. Nobody else really had as strong of an episode this episode to really dethrone Tiffany as the queen winner of this season. And I'm not even the biggest Tiffany fan, but we saw her do all the challenges. We keep getting footage of her now being a beast in challenges, and she had a confessional essentially to this respect, saying, I have the momentum now. Like, the Yasa tribe is moving forwards. We have good teamwork. We're getting content from her. This is what we want to see. We keep getting consistent content from Tiffany, even though she's been so irrelevant. She's not relevant at all because the Yellow Tribe hasn't gone to tribal the past couple episodes, and it's pretty much status quo there strategically for the most part. So we got enough Tiffany content for me to keep her at the top. If she was invisible, I think I'd have to knock her down. Number two, comes as no surprise. I had Shan as number 9 at the start of the season, but she's moved her way up to number 2. We're getting to understand Shan's feelings. We all know that Shan is a strategic powerhouse so far this season. That's without a doubt. She's the one who's playing with the advantages. We got a good confessional from her, which was a little bit understated, actually. It was during the Nathan visit when they won the reward, and Shan had a pretty good confessional about talking about how this season of Survivor is more difficult, and how this is really going to help her push her forwards in this game. And those are the types of narratives and confessionals that we want to see from winners. And the other thing that I really like about Shan is she does have that theme music, which is a little bit annoying to me personally, but hey, it's the producers showed that they're putting some investment into her. And we got that sense of feelings again from her. And she had the same kind of conversation when it was between Brad and JD. And it happened again when it was JD and Jeannie this time. And really thinking about how JD is a little brother to her. And you got some confessional shots. You got some, be real of her and JD bonding and how this would be really difficult for her. We got a lot of content in that relationship between Shan and JD. And now that JD has been eliminated, I believe that's going to be really important because I think when Shan is at the end trying to pitch her case, she's going to talk about her relationship with JD. I think he's going to come up because I think that this is going to be a really important mark in her game to show, look, this guy was my best friend, but I was even able to cut him when I needed to. And this is really interesting for Survivor overall because typically women aren't seen to be able to play as cutthroat games because at the end of the jury, it's seen more negatively compared to a guy where it's not seen as negatively. And so we'll see how Shan's able to justify it at the end and hear him thinking that she gets to the end. I think a Shan's Tiffany final 2 or 2 of them in the final 3 would be extremely compelling to see how they each get there. Whereas Tiffany might have a survival story, whereas Shan might have a bit more of a villainous cutthroat strategy. But Shan's content is looking very good right now, and I think if Shan has another strong episode, I need to put her back up to number one. Having that last confessional before Tribal, that's always a great mark to show who the edit is painting as the one in a power position, and whose mindset they want you to think through. And we're getting a lot of Shan's mindset. As the complete kind of counterpoint, we're not getting any Ricard real deep strategic content. We're not in Ricard's shoes. We don't understand the strength of Ricard and JD's relationship. We don't really understand the strength of Ricard's view on the advantages and how that should play a role. But we understand Shan's both strategic and emotional viewpoints, and that's very strong. And it's usually that one pitch before Tribal about the person who's going to make the decision. Ricard was just as much of a decision maker as Shan, really, when you look at it strategically, but we're getting Shan content in the edit, and so looks really good for her. So she's moving up, and I know the people online have her as number one and have had her as number one for a while, and I'm warming up to it. Now that JD's gone, who was a horse I was picking, Shan's number two. Number three is Sydney, and I've kept Sydney near the top for the past few episodes. She was 3, she dipped down. When we saw the Blue Trap, we didn't get a lot from Sydney, but the whole conversation revolved around Sydney. And I think it might have looked bad when you saw Sydney cry, oh my goodness, I can't deal with the Flint. But I think it made Erica look like the one on the outside. Danny was the one who went straight to Sydney. So Sydney's really the kingpin right there in the middle. And she got the information directly from Danny. The whole tribe wanted to throw the challenge, or at least Danny and Deshawn wanted to throw the challenge just basically for Sydney's sake. And we got a little bit of a sense from Sydney saying, of course I'm a threat. I'm attractive. I'm the person that they want to be. You know, they hate me because they ain't me. And so we keep getting this consistent Sydney content. I don't know if she's supposed to be villainous. I like that attitude. It's kind of fun. So we'll see how the Sassy lawsuit moves forward in this game. But out of the Blue Trap, we're getting the most consistent content from her. We understand her relationship with Nasir. We understand her relationship with Deshawn. We understand that she has a bit of a bad relationship with Erica, so we're starting to understand Sydney's game more, despite her not going to tribal council. And so to pick someone from the Blue Tribe as a potential winner choice, it's got to be her. Number 4, bit of a bounce back for Evvie. She was 5, she's moved up to 4, I think basically because JD's gone, but we got some good content from Evvie again. It's been the Evvie show the first couple episodes. Episode 3, we heard nothing from her. We had a couple good conversations about her, talking about the turtles and how you can never really count them out and they'll keep pushing along. We got this fun little confessional from her talking about how Jeff Probst was probably saying how much the Yasa tribe sucks in the previously on Survivor clips. And so we're getting some humorous content from Evvie. She still seems to me like a side player. I think she's still a bit too strategic. We're not getting the real heart from her. Like, the edit would have been better if we got something similar to like what we saw from Liana or from Tiffany on that tribe, which is just, this is a really tough battle for me, but I've overcome so much. Like, I want that content from her. I don't know if she's maybe just not providing it, but I feel like we're going to get a little bit of a, hey, like she got hoist by her own petard kind of vibe as we move forwards, just being a little bit too strategic. That's the top 4, and I really feel like the winner is in that list. And I think Sydney and Evvie's storylines need to evolve, but we have very good storylines so far from Tiffany and Shan especially, but Tiffany is getting interestingly positive content. So that's a top 4 for now. And we'll just go through the rest. There's been some movement kind of on the undercard, as I call it, when it comes to the contenders. And so number 5, I moved Ricard up, actually. So even though Ricard was wrong again, like, we get this confessional where he's like, we got to get rid of Genie. We're all going to get rid of Genie. And then so it kind of looked like he wasn't part of the main strategic conversations. But for visibility, Ricard has still had his constant visibility. We still have that backstory from him about his family. And I think there's still more of a story of Ricard that's going to be told. Oftentimes in Survivor, sometimes you have a tight duo and the first person leaves. So for example, Jeremy and Natalie in San Juan del Sur. You have Jeremy who's voted out. And so the whole edit was kind of supporting Jeremy, but Natalie kind of adopted the Jeremy edit. So if you were a Jeremy fan and you thought Jeremy's going to have a winner, would be the winner, all your attention went to Natalie, and she had a little bit of the revenge edit. And so I think this is a little bit of what we might see from Ricard. We're getting a little bit of like kind of those like evil, nefarious vibes from Ricard, and so it's very possible that Shan is ousted in a blindside, and Ricard basically takes a sword and marches forward and has a good deep run. It's possible. We're getting enough Ricard content for me to think that could be a storyline. So he's kind of on the periphery now. Nasir I have as number 6 for the 3rd week in a row. That is Nasir. Nasir, I think, is going to be middle of the pack for most of the season. Nasir beasted him a challenge, and we saw that. They only won the challenge because of Nasir, the Luvu tribe, but we just didn't get that confessional. We needed that 1 or 2 confessionals from Nasir. Even if he was not in the plan, he could just say, I really felt like my tribe wasn't, pulling their weight, but I'm here to play. It's possible that Nasir just was such a team player, he just didn't have any good confessionals this episode to carve into the narrative, but I'm also a little bit worried because there's one episode where we have seen the blue tribe dynamics. Nasir's been left out. We really got Deshawn, Sydney, Erica. We saw that side of things, the younger people in the tribe, whereas the older people in the tribe we didn't hear from. So I still don't really know where Nasir fits in the tribe dynamics, but the fact there's other things happening I think is good for his depth in the game. But for a winner, we needed some more content from him for him to get pushed up. I mean, there's still time. We got to still see it this year. We did have Deshawn have a good confessional about, hey, Nasir was a good guy. He deserved it. So he's still in our heads as a positive player. But yeah, we'll see how Nasir's edit rolls on. Number 7, I have Deshawn. And I've had Deshawn at the bottom from the first episode. And he's moving up because of his ability. He's moving up because we understood a lot from his mindset, both when it came to the actual state of affairs in the Luvu camp. We got a lot of confessionals from him. And we also got to understand why he wanted to throw the challenge. He got some humorous content about retying the knots and his back and forth with Danny. And so we're getting enough from him to understand that he's an important player in this game. He does have that additional, the additional vote in his pocket. And we did see him have good, positive relationships with both Erica and with Sydney. I think he's making the bad move to just burn Erica. Like, you might as well play both of those scenes until Tribal and then make a heart-wrenching decision at that point. There's no reason to really pick a side now, but we're at least understanding his viewpoint, and he seems like a pivotal player in the Blue Tribe, and I think he'll be a pivotal strategic player in this game. I think he'll go deep, but I have him at 7 for now. For number 8, that's where I have Genie. And so I've had Genie low. But this is kind of the conversation it's having with Ricard. I think Genie might take the torch from Brad. We're getting this is a little bit of Genie's breakout episode. We had her upset at the start. I was blindsided too. We got a little bit of waterworks from her when it came to Tribal Council. We're getting that emotion from Genie, which is what we were alluded to at the start of the season. And we're understanding her strategic play as well a little bit. We heard from her about talking to JD. We heard about her talking about when Nathan came to the camp as well, and how that's really going to help morale and how she's kind of bonding back with the tribe again. We're getting enough from Genie where I think she's an important player. I don't think she's the winner, but I think she's an important player. And we'll see if her edit really picks up and if she really just was the person to kind of follow on with Brad and go on a bit of a revenge mission. So, number 8. And below this, these are people who I feel are kind of out of contention entirely. Number 9 is Erica. This is Erica's kind of breakout episode. She says she's a lion. We got some good content from her about how she's wanted to play. She's been playing an under-the-radar game. She wants to go to Tribal as well. And she just wants to really get her torch and start playing. And she's going to be a big player this season. But she was undermined by the edit, too. Then we saw how Deshawn essentially doesn't trust her. And so we got a sense that she isn't trusting the right people. She's not making the right moves. And when she's playing incorrectly. So she gets a bump because we at least understand who she is now. And she's become a relevant player based on this episode. But number 9 because she was undermined as well. 10 is Xander. The slip for Xander continues. He's going from 5 to 7 to 8 to 10. Strong first episode where he was on the periphery of a contender. But we're not getting Xander's I must win to survive. I want to see Xander talk about how he killed it in these challenges and how if he loses, he doesn't have a vote and he's going to go. His narrative, although we know what his narrative is, we need to be reminded from that, I believe. We should be if he is the winner. So the fact that Xander is probably such a very compelling player this season, we're not hearing from him, number 10. Number 11 is Liana. We didn't hear from her this episode at all. We got a little bit from Yellow. We heard from Tiffany. We heard from Evvie. Liana had her one interesting confessional about a big move. But that's about it. So she slipped back down to 11. People have her as a top contender. People have her as high as 2 or 3. I have no idea how they're coming up with that. We don't know anything about her other than her one confessional about a big move. We didn't even see her this episode. She's 11. Number 12, who I have even below Liana, is Danny. Danny had his 3. Danny had the second confessional this season. But we don't know anything about Danny. To me, it's when players start to say things, they don't have any idea why they're saying that. And so when Danny's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea to throw the challenge and get Erica out, why? What are your relationships, Danny? Are you with Deshawn? Are you with Erica? Are you bonded with Sydney? What's your view on Asir? What's your view on Heather? We don't know anything about Danny. I don't even know if he was trying to throw the challenge or not. He had confessionals where he said he was trying to throw it, but they showed him that he clearly was pushing the wood. He clearly was trying to help out the team. He was the one who actually unlocked the rings and then showed to have any trouble with it. So he just doesn't have a consistent narrative, and inconsistent narratives are almost worse than being hidden in an episode, because it really shows that the editors just don't care about you, and they're just putting whatever scraps together to help the overall narrative of the episode without building the actual character's narrative. And so, Danny, you're 12. Like, you're low. So I need to see some good Danny content, and we're seeing a little bit of Danny next episode talk about how the girls are going to band together. So I think the Danny content's going to increase, but just because you have a lot of content doesn't necessarily mean it's good content or consistent content. So you're 12. 13 is Heather. Heather, you're at the bottom. We got some more Heather content, but it was kind of bad content. It was, she couldn't do the challenge, and so we got one confessional from her about how this is about Survivor, and it's about overcoming these things. I think that's her story. I think her narrative is somebody who, came out here and gave her her best, but that's not a winner story. We have a much better version of that story with Tiffany already, that the editors have put a lot of effort into for someone overcoming the odds, or just a Yasa tribe in general. And so I just don't think there's that focus on Heather. We haven't heard from her really at all. And we still don't know how she fits into the tribe dynamics, which is incredibly important in Survivor. If we don't understand how you played, rather than just surviving and not being voted out and just being pleasant enough, that's not good enough. So that's a wrap. I really believe the top 4. And I said this for JD, but at the same time, my number 1's still in it. I still have a lot of stock in Shan and Sydney, and maybe a little bit of Evvie as well. So it's interesting that my top 4 contenders are female. We'll get a woman winner, it looks like, this season, and I'm all here for it. So this is Survivor Teek. We'll see how this changes next week, and we'll see if one of my top contenders are voted out and I was made a fool once again, just like with JD. So thanks so much, guys.